Earlier on, around a study that was done, didn't we, amongst young people aged 13 to 17, and that gave us a real picture of perhaps abusive, unhealthy relationships that are occurring amongst people that are as young as kind of 13 to 17. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Is that something you're seeing around friends, family, perhaps? As we see here in this data that we've got, around 75% of girls and 50% of boys report some form of emotional relationship abuse. So does that shock you, perhaps? Anybody got any thoughts?
I'll be the first one to speak. So like...
Does that shock you, Perry?
What, that young people deal with a lot of domestic abuse without realising?
Abusive relationships that are occurring in really, really young people, as young as 13 to 17 perhaps.
I think this is just in my opinion, in general, that when young people experience domestic abuse, I don't think they realise, but then even if they do realise, they won't take it to an adult just in case that adult takes it somewhere else. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in my professional opinion, I know certain times young people won't approach me with certain things that they know I'll have to disclose, and I feel that that's the same in terms of domestic abuse amongst young people. They won't want to talk to an adult about it because they'll like to say they'll blow it out of proportion, but then they'll take it more seriously. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you get what I mean?
Or maybe they do this.
I feel like everyone's laughing at me, right?
Just get it.
What's so funny? I'm looking over there.
There's some man in the camera.
I was looking there. I looked at you. I could see all these smiling faces looking at me. I was thinking,
Zara making me laugh. Some man walked past the window and went,
are you being serious?
I swear down.
Guys, you've been laughing on camera.
You two don't
I was looking around.
You two don't even know what's going on.
People from all angles of the room laughing at us. I just came up.
So do you think if you were in a bit of an unhealthy, abusive relation, perhaps would you tell an adult? Would you tell? Who would you tell, mate? Any thoughts?
I think, going off of what Perry just said, I feel like a lot of young children don't actually realise that they need to take that step to go and tell someone, such as an adult, because they don't even realise they're being, I don't know, groomed, manipulated into a toxic relationship. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the time it may not be intentional that they've gone and told their peers instead of an adult, because if we're young, obviously we're going to go express our good news to our friends that are our age. We're not going to go to an adult and be like, oh, this is a situation between me and my partner, etc. So yeah, I feel like it takes someone with, I don't know, I'd say, not even, I don't want to say common sense, but that can realise and actually assess the situation and
what
understand.
If they don't think like it's abuse? You know
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it takes someone that can actually assess the situation and recognise it to be able to take that step and be like, this is wrong, like what's going on isn't healthy.
Like my definition and your definition might be different. You know
so what's your definition?
No, I'm not gonna go.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying
because like we're like two different type of people, like come from different backgrounds, different type of, you know what I'm saying?
Right. It's interesting listening to what you're all saying because Lucy knows I've got a 17-year-old granddaughter and she's very much interested in the work we do. And she approached me, it was last year, was it Lucy?
Yeah.
And said that one of her school friends she feels uncomfortable now with her boyfriend because if she doesn't see him, he doesn't leave her alone. She doesn't love him. She doesn't, she's going out with someone else. And he puts all this on her. So what she's gradually done now is back away from all her friends.
Isolate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like my granddaughter was now saying to her, oh, well, look at it from this way, look at it from this way. And when she tries, he is so overbearing on her. Yeah. But he does the checking her phone. He does the, what is it when they go out? And he knows her.
By my friend.
No,
location.
There's on her. And I mean, she's only just now turned 17 and she's had a year of this. And when my granddaughter tries to talk to her, she goes, oh yeah, but he really, really loves me.
I think they need to set boundaries. People need to have healthy boundaries.
But what I'm saying, it was just interesting hearing you talk about that and how it resonated with me. And it starts so young.
So you guys are fortunate. I got married. It happens. And my wife, soon to be ex-wife, I would go out on a work night out, for example. I'd come home from work and I'd be in bed and she'd be shining torches in my face to look for makeup, things like that. She'd go through my pants, like to check for traces of any juices and fluids. And my clothes, she'd go through it. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and have a torch in my face. But that was just control. I had a crack put on my car so that whenever I would get somewhere, she would know where I was. Not only that, it was sort of similar to what you say. It's one of them where the person's insecurity is then used against you. You don't love me, because it doesn't work. Yeah. And even down to simple things like you guys are fortunate because you're good-looking fellas and lasses. That even if you grew, like you went out and had a shave, or had your hair cut, or you wore jeans, or you wore nice pants, like nice underwear, nice boxes for you guys, it was seen as you were doing something sordid, or you were doing something incorrect. So you wouldn't go to the bar to get your hair cut, you wouldn't shave, you wouldn't wear nice clothes because you were fearful A, that you would be judged for it, and B, that you would then suffer, whether that be physical assault, whether that be verbal, whether that be name calling, whether that be that judgment. But then you don't realise it because you're in a relationship with someone.
Because you're in it, aren't you?
Yeah, and you think that respect's
right
there.
in that thick of
Then
it.
you have to ask yourself, how much do you take and accept it? That's an issue they've got and they need to deal with. You can't do that for them.
Yeah.
So how long do you stay in a relationship allowing that to happen? And it's not easy. If you love somebody, you can only offer them support and help.
Yeah.
They've got to help themselves.
That's it. I think the key to it is the one thing which you guys might find as you go through life, it is that you can have these conversations, but someone will say to you, well, why didn't you leave then? Why didn't you tell someone? You're like, well, it's not that easy because I'm invested and I take care of that person, I support that person.
Emotionally,
across the board. And even for you guys now, even at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you're like, you grow up with people, you grow up with these guys and these girls, and you're like, I would marry this girl. She's the one. You're like 14, you're saying this, 15, you're saying this, but you devote your whole entire life to them. And with that, you get checked in every 2 seconds. People go for your followers lists, your phone. If you haven't got your PIN number, like you have to give it to the other person. And you don't realise that because you're like, I love you, so I want to be with you for the rest of my life. So you can do what you want to me, how you want to me. But it isn't until but it isn't until
It's got to be trust as well.
Yeah, for us, slightly different. That we'll watch EastEnders and we'll see Ricky give Sonia a backhand or a slap, if that ever happened. Hopefully it didn't. But then you'd be like, right, it's a triggering subject. Everyone's talking about it. You're like, miss, that's been happening to me at home. Like, I don't know what to do about it. And I think you guys might be able to, you might agree or disagree, but it comes down to education as well. When you go to school or college or whatever, you've got no teachers to talk to, no tutors you trust. You can have those conversations with. I know the girls will vouch over there in the period cycle sort of things, but you might, being a female of course, it's 2023, you can be whatever you want to be, but it might be that you're being pressurised to have sex, whether it be full sex, oral sex, whatever, but you're pressured by your fella. Nice.
And do you think it's about being believed as well?
Yeah.
So if you're, say, like 15, 16, and these things are happening to you, and you perhaps go to a teacher, is a teacher educated enough to understand? Do they know what? Oh, is it just a little bit?
It depends what they've been through. Because if they're in a perfect relationship and nothing's ever happened to them, how do you expect them to know what you're saying to them?
That's right. So I think that could be.
I also think it's generational norms. So if a young adult was to come to, I feel like an old person now, my generation, we didn't have mobile phones, so we weren't tracked. You know, we always think, oh my God, if I went out and I said I was going here, told my mum and dad I was going there, and we went somewhere else, and we got in all sorts of trouble.
I did do that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Whereas now, young adults, it's the norm to be on Snapchat and see where everyone is. It's the norm to post your life and everyone know what you're doing and what's going on. So to be in a relationship, your whole life is out there publicly, isn't it? And if you were to go to an adult, is that a barrier because you don't think they understand the pressures that you're under.
Do you not think as well? They say it's different. Oh, it's different now. It's always different now.
It's always different now.
Yeah. In the old days.
Yeah.
How do we feel about
I got called old earlier. You're old school, like, really?
monitored all the time?
Yeah,
How do you feel about that, do you think? What's it like for you, or is it just normal?
Yeah,
for
it's
you?
just, I would say it's just normal for me because I track all my friends. My friends always track me, so we don't think anything of it. But I think it's when we have an invasion of privacy that we can go, okay, this is too much, we need to stop this. But like you say, it's not that easy. We can't just break away from it. And there's many steps. It's like, it's first realising, okay, I'm actually in this situation, and then it's, I need to get help. And like you say, going to adults is a barrier. Age is a barrier. But there are websites and there are people that you can speak to who are your age or near your age who can give you professional help.
Do you feel like one of the things which for me sits is that do you guys have trust in the system?
What do you mean by that? What system are we talking about?
The whole system, so the education, would that be public services to the police, for example, for counsellors?
Me personally, I feel like as a generation, as youth, I feel like we don't trust in our system whatsoever. I feel like that can be police, it can be school, it can be teachers, it can be counsellors, it can even be youth workers, because sometimes, you know, a lot of the times when people do things like that are no.
I was looking there and I see it say even youth workers. I'm like,
No, let me finish. Let me land in. I feel like even youth workers today, you feel like they're just doing it for money. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a 9-to-5 job. It's not like no, you don't. So much serious. Not
Most youth workers apart from 21 Knox, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
most youth workers.
We've got your back. I'm glad I'm amusing you guys.
No, sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
So
You don't think they're invested?
Yeah, I feel like it's as kids we need to feel a sense of like trust and a bond there. Otherwise, we're not gonna just come to a stranger and be like, "This is what's my situation." Like, I'm pouring my heart out to you. That's not how I feel like our kids have been brought up in this generation. But like, you need someone you can actually trust. Because I know, like, for example, in school, even if teachers like notice something and they assign you to a counsellor, you're gonna go in that room, and I know a lot of kids will sit there and say, "Oh, it's a chore, I've got to go see my counsellor." They don't actually feel like it's helping them at all. So I feel like there's all these resources and systems, but they're not being used to the extent they should be, and it's not being how would I say this? It's not being put in
place properly.
Yeah, that too, because I feel like it's all over the place, and I feel like there's so many cracks in the system with police, with, you know, youth workers and stuff like that. Like, I just don't think.
Do you think there's a barrier?
Definitely a massive barrier.
But a barrier
between
from your generation in terms of thinking, no, I don't even want to use the word cold, that word doesn't use it, but it's just not. Just go and see a counsellor because you don't want anyone knowing that you're going to see a counsellor.
And I think it's also the fact that it's like, I don't think, me personally, I just wouldn't think they would care. Like, why am I sitting there? Like, what are you going to do for me that's going to help me and change my situation? Like, that's how I would think about it. Obviously, if it's someone I can trust, then it's a different like outcome.
That is an interesting thing, because one of the clients that I've worked with before, they were issued a counsellor through their secondary school, and he felt it was a waste of time.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of.
Used to have 45 minutes, then it was a great session today, and he actually said to her, well, this is what he said to her, but I haven't spoken.
I also feel like, to be honest, getting counselling in school is just kids to get time out of their lesson. Personally, I just feel like they don't really feel, you know, a connection there, and I think that's what needs to be built as a foundation. But yeah.
You've all talked a lot sort of already about somebody, and I think you said it originally, about somebody not knowing that this was abuse, and you've all got kind of different ideas around what abuse looks like. Do we all have different understandings then, do you think, of what's healthy, unhealthy, abusive? But where does that come from? If we say something's normalised, Where does it come from?
So if there's two people, one person sees something as abusive, like say looking through phones, one person sees that as abusive, the second person doesn't. To the second person, it's not abusive because they don't see it as abusive. The first person sees it as abusive, so it's abusive to them. So it's not subjective, it's to what they believe. Do you get what that's what I think, at least. Yeah, like, I don't. The system. What's the system done for us? I've seen more bad things from the system than I've seen from the good. I've seen good things, so no one can ever convince me otherwise. The system's not designed to help us, bro. I don't want to hit. Yeah.
So if someone comes sort of to, the situation you're describing where somebody's perhaps being abused, somebody's an abuser, somebody doesn't believe that that's abuse, where does that belief come from? Where do we learn what's perhaps healthy, unhealthy? Who teaches us that?
I'd say first from your household, your primary household, your family, what you've seen, because your idea of love will be your mum and dad, how you've seen them grow up and how they've been treated to each other. I feel like the second would be your school, or when you're growing up in primary school, secondary school, you get taught what's right and wrong further from your household.
Education.
Further from education. And I also feel like it could be environment, your friends and family, whatever your friends and family might accept, you now think is tolerable, like with your partner. And also to bounce off of what Uzi just said, I feel like you say, for example, we were talking about the phone situation, there needs to be a level of compromise. No, they need to compromise. Say for example, I have a partner that thinks it's okay to go through my phone and I disagree with that. He would need to compromise on that now and say, look, like, I don't agree, you think that's okay. As partners, that should have been a conversation. It shouldn't have been. I feel like the moment you realise there's a power struggle and there's a sense of your independence going, that's a big red flag, and I feel like that's when you should start looking at things from the outside.
Absolutely.
You also got to remember with relationships, not just with the relationship you're in with, it can be in workplace as well.
Absolutely.
It's also important to remember that you feel that you work with vibration and being harmonious. It tells you a lot about a relationship if you can work side by side with somebody. And to be in a relationship, you've got to feel quite harmonious. You'd be able to support one another. I think the problem is we don't always have comparisons. We don't know what is the difference between a toxic relationship or one that's a normal, healthy relationship. I think it's up to us individually also to find that out, in terms of there's a lot of information out there now, and we all need to know a little bit more about who we are and the dynamics between you and that person, and what happens between you and that person, that dynamic, that space. You can easily find that out, and if it's not right for you, then you have to have the strength of character to cut it off, because it only spirals down. And it's not really about accepting like trauma bonding and these where you fall in love with somebody and they love bomb you, and then all of a sudden it turns nasty. And then you think, well, I do love that person, I want to stay in this relationship now. It did work at one time, why isn't it working now? And you have to recognise why that is and try to support one another and talk to friends, like I said.
I also feel like toxic relationships are glorified a lot in our generation, and I feel like it's like, I don't know, people just love the idea of a toxic relationship, and I even feel like people that had never, say for example, you've come from a household where you have happily married parents and everything's been taught normally as it should. I feel like in this generation, the way toxic relationships are glorified is sort of a thing where, I want to try it, like, let me see what it's like, type of thing.
But that's more for girls.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree with that.
I don't know.
But I also feel like boys, some boys, I'd say...
There's a health problem.
Yeah, I quite like, that's...
No,
some girls, I'm not even
No, you can say girls, but I was...
damaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was with my mate yesterday, and he's in a toxic relationship, and he was telling me, like, he was having this phone call, arguing or whatever, and I'm here, and I've been next to him, and then he was telling me, bro, I'm actually sick of this, and I said, bro, don't lie, you love it, bro, and he said, yeah, I can't lie, but I'm sick of it. And then I was thinking, obviously, he said that like a joke, I know he's being serious, bro. I don't know, there's just like, in our generation, there's a level of confrontation that people like because of how used to it. It's just a level of confrontation. Like, if things go too smooth, if things are going too smooth, then it's like you're uncomfortable. Yeah, I guess so in a way.
I feel like
exactly.
it's always, there's a hole.
So I guess the way that people see toxic
but I feel like
relationships.
there's a difference between a playful relationship than your toxic.
Your authentic self. Right? If you can't be your true authentic self, then you're trying to people please.
Yeah.
Then it's something wrong.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to live your
own
authentic life.
So how many people have been in a relationship before or finished a relationship and someone said to you, well, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you ask for help?
Well, he said it to me because there was a point where Jennifer was a girl and we were on Brentwood High Street with about a lot of people, like everyone came out that day, and in front of everybody she really started beating me up, innit?
Huh?
Yeah.
Sorry? No, I didn't catch that.
Basically, I had my hand on the shoulder of a girl and she got really angry and thought my arm was around her. She started shouting at me, started throwing punches, and after he was like, why don't you just leave? And I was like, I don't know.
Well, this was your girlfriend at the time?
Yeah, basically.
So did you ask her or like figure out why she reacted in that way? If she was triggered by anything?
Yeah, she triggered because I had my hand on the shoulder.
But she's not just going to be triggered by her hand, like there would have been an underlying reason to why.
No, she was genuinely triggered over that.
But that's the thing. See,
She's jealous.
There would have been a reason why.
No, because the girl was my best friend, innit, that I had my hand on, and she got jealous over that.
Okay.
Do you feel like what you just said there, you putting your hand on her shoulder, do you feel like, that you might not feel it now, but do you feel like at the time you were justifying her behaviour? Well, yeah, I did have my hand on her shoulder, so yeah, you can react like that. Or were you like, nah, I ain't dealing with that?
It's a bit far.
Nah, yeah, it was a bit too far. Like,
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to her with the situation, and then she was not having it. Like, she just saw red and basically just started throwing hands at me. Like, I couldn't do anything back because she's a girl. Like,
How did you deal with it? What was your approach?
I bought sweets after, innit? I bought a packet of sweets after. I bought a packet of sweets after to calm down.
So you felt bad.
Yeah.
So you thought you had to rectify a situation because of the person's behaviour. And how was that received by her?
She calmed down in the end.
Did she apologise?
No.
And are you still in that relationship?
No.
Why did you leave?
Huh? The toxicness.
Or did you leave to safeguard yourself, or did you leave because you were influenced to leave?
Influenced by him to leave.
He's a good friend. He's a good friend.
So we listen to our friends. We listen to our friends. Do we listen to our friends more than we do adults around us, perhaps?
Yeah.
Some people just know what's best for them.
I think
What's best for them,
subconsciously,
you know what I'm saying?
I feel like we actually, as kids, I feel like we think our friends know us more than our family, or that might be different, but in my case, I feel like that. So I feel like if I was to go to a situation and go to my mum, for example.
Yeah, she's there.
No, she's always listening. Yeah, I feel like I would get I'd get two different perspectives from going to my friend and to my mum, and I feel like my friends would understand it from my perspective, whereas my mum would see it as a mother. Does that make sense? Whereas my friends would kind of tap into what they would do in their situation if I was in their shoes, if that makes sense.
Can I say something about that though? Because it's interesting, because as a mum, a single mum, my husband died when my son was 9, and now my son's 25, and I just recently came out of a 20-year relationship, and it was toxic, and my son lived through a certain amount of that as well, and he had a girlfriend, and he was experiencing a similar situation. So he learned a lot from my relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and he realised then he was also in a toxic relationship. So he actually made the decision. He asked me a few questions, and I didn't tell him what to do.
Yeah.
But I said to him, "You're young. You've got to make that judgment call, and it's something you've got to think. Is it best to do it now, or is it when you're too far down the road, married with 2 children?
Yeah.
You know, and it's a vicious circle. You have to make a decision, and I think for me as a mum, I was pleased that he saw it through my relationship, and he made the decision himself, you know, to break up with his girlfriend.
I think you wanted to say about the what really question. What was your experiences?
Well, I didn't leave when I knew it was toxic, because I only realised the relationship was toxic a few years later after we ended these things, and it's only because I realised with friends, with family, with the media, especially social media, telling me these things to look out for, these toxic signs, that I realised, oh, that's happening in my relationship, or that did happen in my last relationship. So it's not as easy as, right, I just need to end these things. Because the person at that time doesn't realise it, because usually you've been love bombed, you just like the feeling of being loved, having the attention, but it's the things that happen behind closed doors that nobody knows about. That's the worst bit, but that's also the bit that makes you more attached to them, because they're giving you the love, but they're also giving you the bad stuff as well. So you're going to stay for the bad stuff because you need the love and attention.
Try and work through and make go back to the good stuff. You're fighting to get that back again. Because if you've seen it once, you think, why won't it come back again? And you work, and it keeps you. That's what trauma bonding is. And you get love bombed at the start, and you think this is wonderful, and then all of a sudden it starts going toxic. Then you start thinking, why is it going toxic? Let's try and work it. Get back.
You think it's a problem with you, but usually it's never a problem with you. It's usually the other person.
Would you say that for you guys as a collective, would you say that certain topics or themes are triggering to you, which actually make you reflect and think, you know what, like, life is pretty shit, like, but I'm glad I got out of that? Or how many of you guys now see certain topics, they are triggering, but you're still stuck in that rut and you're like, I need to get out of this place, but what else is there for me?
You feel scared.
You've already made the wrong decision by being in a relationship. You're not ready for a relationship. If you don't love yourself 100%, if you're not 100% perfect by yourself, if you're not happy at night sleeping alone by yourself, then you could never. Why would you could look for that in another person? You leave yourself. If you lose that person, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You could get hit so you can have a heart attack. You could die when you're 90. You're messing out. So.
Did you punch us so hard?
I was so well told.
The way society is today, that it sets you up.
I feel like if you're like, some people, they go through trauma in life from other things and nothing to do with a relationship, and then they suffer, they heal, whatever. But then I feel like some people, if they're still in their stages of healing, and they think that they'll find in another person. They think that if they go to another person, they will solve all their problems. But it becomes with a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of unresolved trauma, a lot of unhealed trauma that is you're gonna project, and you won't mean to do it. Sometimes you won't mean to do it, but you'll do it. Like you'll say something, you'll feel a type of way, you'll start thinking crazy thoughts because you're not healed yet. So if you're not healed yet from other things, how could you progress in, do you get what I mean?
There's a reason why people say if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. I had to look into this. It's because when we get into a relationship and we have the love stage, we have the honeymoon stage, and then everything comes down, that's when a lot of relationships tend to get violent and toxic, because you've gone past the good stage and then now you're getting into the stage where everything's calm, everything is normal in a way. You know the person, you're comfortable with them, and that actually resolves on you. You're in a trauma that you're going to project onto other people that could cause domestic violence, that could cause toxic relationships. So like I say, it's usually the other person's issues and their traumas projecting on you because they haven't solved it themselves.
It's keeping up an act as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they can't keep that going for that long.
Does the drama stop?
Well, no, but they have enablers, people that won't call them out, and that's the biggest problem, because when you've got enablers, you know, they're usually sometimes your friends, you know, and you feel isolated that you can't talk to them because of that, because they're enabling that person to do what they're doing, they're not calling them out. And I think that it's really important that you recognise that as well, you know, and
when you split up with your girlfriend, did the drama carry on?
For a little bit, for like a month or two. You know the drama carried on. With Katie,
I remember.
Your name dropping there, yeah?
What kind of things?
Censor that. Hey, go censor that. You gotta put an end on that.
Yeah, no names. What kind of things happened then? What kind of things happened?
Stalking me, calling me. No caller IDs. Late at night, I was with him at parties, looking at me. It's just weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but what you got to understand sometimes is you got to put yourself in their shoes sometimes in order to fully understand this. I know it sounds crazy because if we're talking about abusive partners, etc., it's learned behavior. So like that, you could have been to her something she really needed, but obviously it wasn't healthy for you, it wasn't healthy for her. But sometimes you need to look at things. Sometimes she might need the help, but she might not realize it. So her energy towards you is something she needs help with. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I think you're
And
right.
it's not your responsibility to fix them.
Yeah.
Definitely not your
I was
responsibility.
also going to say, I feel like you shouldn't allow people's trauma and people's unhealed trauma to, you're not a therapist, do you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't allow yourself to get hurt by other people's trauma, because I think, I don't know, me personally, which I struggle with a lot, is I get stuck in this, like, I'm very understanding, and I feel like, because I'm quite like emotionally aware of things, I feel like a lot of the time when people are doing things, I always know why they're doing it. Like I always can understand, okay, maybe it's because of this and maybe it's because of that. Like I understand, and maybe I'm too understanding to the point where it's now I'm allowing certain things that I wouldn't allow, because I feel like, oh no, like I've given you an excuse, like, oh, you've got this going on, or you've got this going on. And really and truly, that's not my problem. Do you know what I'm saying? That shouldn't be something I should have to deal with because you haven't healed your trauma. And I also feel like another thing I'd like to say is, me personally, when I realised that something may be not good for me, like environment-wise or toxic, is when I start realising me coming out of character. Like I'm doing things that I know my healed, mature self wouldn't do, and I know I'm going back into things that are not healthy, and then I feel like initially I become toxic as well, because it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a power struggle. Like you feel like if you're saying this to me, I'm going to do the same thing back to you, type of thing. So yeah.
It's what you say to them and they say back to you.
Yeah.
That dynamic.
And then I feel like now my unhealed trauma has come to the surface, and now this is how it's become toxic. Because otherwise, if I really didn't care, I'd just be like, okay, I'm leaving. Do you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even engage in. I wouldn't engage in what you're saying. I'll just block you, remove, done. But I feel like the time when I know I'm actually engaging, whether or not it's in a good way or a positive way or negative way, I'm still engaging in, which means I'm still, allowing this toxic situation to carry on. So yeah.
No, I'll be real, yeah. For young people, you use very green hair screwed up. I'll be honest. Like, seriously, I'm pretty impressed. You know what I'm from? Like, this is what I mean. This is why I love working with young people, because they're underestimated. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like to have some...
We are underestimated.
Am I allowed to ask one more thing?
Go on.
Am I allowed to ask one more thing?
Go on, yeah.
So we've talked lots, haven't we, about unhealthy relationships, abusive relationships. What I would like all of you to kind of contribute now is, what do you think then are important characteristics in a healthy relationship? What is the goal? What are we looking for? Because we've talked about the negative aspects.
Communication.
What does who said that? Communication.
Yes, Will.
Finally. Will's awake. Can we get a round of applause for Will, please?
Well done, Will. Anything else? Communication.
This was definitely pre-arranged.
Supporting one another, celebrating one another's successes, and being able to to guide one another through life generally. It's not about being jealous or not really feeling that you can talk to the other one because they might get upset if you've succeeded in an area of work or some form of achievement, and they're not going to celebrate that with you. I think it's about collaboration.
I think ultimately as well, you took it now on the head a little bit. A toxic relationship isn't just with your partner, it's at work, it's education, it's your friendships. And you two are a prime example of the fact that you gave them that guidance and that arm around the shoulder and said, look, your situation is not very good, you need to deal with this. And it could have been the opposite, where you could have been like, just keep going at her, keep winding her up. because the reality is it's easier to, in some cases it's easier to do that. I think equally at the same time, every relationship needs a balance, and you summed it up quite nicely that there will be elements of point scoring with your partner or with a person, because that's just life.
Yeah.
But it's understanding that you're gonna have those days where, for us, it's slightly different, where we haven't done the cooking, haven't done the washing up.
You just get moaned at.
You get moaned at, yeah, you get moaned at, but but then you're like, well, I'm not being funny, I might have done the plates, but you haven't taken the rubbish out.
Yeah.
And you do that, but that isn't necessarily. Yeah, and it does spiral. You have to. I think it's healthy to be aware of what a disagreement is, and it's healthy to have those disagreements because you can repair. But the key to it, for me personally, the key to a healthy relationship is looking at someone in the eyes and knowing that you go to war for them if you need to go to war for them. And this is why. That's not just a universal relationship as in a couple. The reality is, if you two looked at each other right now in the eyes, you would have confidence to know that he would have your back regardless, and vice versa.
Don't watch, I can screenshot that.
That's it.
That's a perfect moment.
And the thing is, you know that as well. And the good thing is, and that's just healthy, and that's organic, and you'll get that through life, and you'll get people who you wouldn't go to war for, and as soon as you get people you wouldn't go to war for,
you're not fully there with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to remember, as time goes on in a relationship, you could have difference of, you could one outgrow the other.
Yeah.
You could also have a situation where you need to understand if you've outgrown each other. Then that gap may never be closed. And therefore you might have to go your separate ways. So it's recognising what's good and what's not good in the relationship in terms of.
I think that's what people don't
being
understand.
Healthy.
I think that's what people don't understand. Like knowing when to break off and knowing when to leave. I think that's the main struggle.
I got a good bit of
Nobody
advice.
likes to break off, I think, because it's a sense of loss, a sense of like kind of sort of an abandonment of your.
I was going to say
what you feel comfortable about.
Comfortable. Wait, I just want to say something.
Go on.
Basically, I read something. It was actually a poem, and I think this changed my outlook on relationships as a whole. And it was that I view love as less of an emotion and more of a choice. So it's like, obviously you feel these emotions, you're feeling like you're all caught up in whatever the situation is, but I feel like you have to, every day you wake up and you decide whether you still want to love that person. I feel like you choose, am I still going to be there with you? Am I still going to, am I allowing myself to give this version of myself to you? I feel like that's also something that's changed my perspective on a lot of relationships. It's like, let me think, instead of being emotional, let me think more logically in this situation. So if it's like, I weigh out the pros and cons and I feel like, look, I don't want to give myself to you anymore, then that's when I know it's cut.
And there's the other side to that as well, because as you get older in our generation, you start to realise actually there's something quite good about being able to sit in your own space and not have to fulfil and feel that gap all the time.
100%.
And so I think the fact that when we get to this age as well, relationships do break down. If you're in them for a long time, people do get relationship breakdowns, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with being on your own. If you like your own space, your own company, it's not like Billy no mates, it doesn't matter. But with younger people, they feel that they've got to aspire to being in a relationship, or they've got to have good friends, and really when the truth be known is, in life you come in alone and you'll go out alone. So why not in the middle of that area there, if you are sometimes faced with that time to look at what it is fundamentally that you want in a relationship, you should take that time to do that. Don't be afraid about that.
The secret to making a relationship last year is to do in order to prevent the end, do in the middle what you did at the start.
What if it's not you?
Because at the start, you go above and beyond to make that person feel special. Once you get used to it, and you know that person ain't going nowhere, you're just like, oh, they say take out the rubbish. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Oh, can you do the dishes? Going to work. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. You get year 2-3 years into that relationship, what you do it. Well, I did it last time. You do the washing up. I've been working all day. Do you understand where I'm coming from? You lose that edge. Why do you think married couples have been together 20-30 years and they're still doing date night once a week? because they're still doing at the start what they're still doing in the middle what they did at the start. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They're still doing in the middle what they did at the start. Is it tongue twist, isn't it? What's that?
Can I just say something? All you're saying is that any relationship needs working at.
100%.
And you should always be working at that. If you
100%.
love someone and care for somebody, you'll always work in that relationship as if it's the first day of your every day of your life. Because otherwise, you know, it dies on its feet. You're not going to really, I mean, you accept one another for who they are and what they are, but you should always be trying to validate them. Take the time to make them feel special like they would you. Now that's part of it. Going out and make that time for yourself where you go out on a date night. Take the time to organise an event where you go out to the theatre. You know, those special moments are what bonds you and keep you together. The minute you take it for granted and you don't work on it, that's when it starts to.
And it's not the big things, is it?
It's not.
Not the big gestures.
Yeah.
Little things, man, like little note under the, little note on the side.
I'm more of a little thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like, something cheesy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
in a relationship, you need to keep talking. You ask that person, is there something that I'm not doing that you don't? Is there something I'm doing that you don't like? Or is, I mean, vice versa?
It has to be, as you say, vice versa, it has to be reciprocal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't make all the effort and somebody doesn't make that effort
What I was
back.
going to say before is the pressure on, if I look at my son, one, social life, there's, you know, at our age we didn't need fake ID because everyone went in the pubs and clubs and you didn't have to get asked the door and you got to experience life and being out socially, whereas today you've got pretty much nowhere to go, no? Nothing to do. Social media is presenting, look how fantastic my life is, look how fantastic I look at what clothes I'm wearing, look at what I've got. I mean, you're dealing with all of those challenges as well as trying to be in a perfect relationship, which is exactly what's on TV or in film.
Relationships, again, it's repair, like connection, disconnection, repair. So all relationships are going like this, like that, because it's not going to go plain sailing, because you all at different stages, you're learning different things in your life, and you also got, you know, your self-growth, you're seeing things different, your perception is different to what it was when you first started together. So it is always about connection, disconnection, repair. So it's always going to be like that throughout your whole relationship. And you've got to be prepared for that. So sometimes, you know, you may not be able to repair it because somebody's grown way far beyond, you know, what you yourself are not prepared to grow to or aspire to. You might be happy sitting in, being a mum in your own space at home, and your partner might like to be going and travelling around the world and seeking out whatever it is they want to seek. You know, and that you then grow apart from being those couple that you were when you started, full on in love.
Yeah, I think the most important thing in a relationship, I think, is independence. If you can't have your own independence, if the other person can't have their own independence, then that is the main factor in determining whether that relationship is right for you. If you can't be yourself with your own space, your own boundaries, you know, if you don't want to text them, then you don't have to text them. The pressure of that is too much, and sometimes, well, all the time in toxic relationships, often the pressure is just put down on people again and again and again, and you don't even realise the pressure is building up until you think, wait, hold on a minute, look at all this pressure that's been put on me, or look at all the pressure that's on other relationships. They haven't got this much. So this is the key determining factor in toxic relationships, whether you have your independence and whether they respect your independence.
Yeah, there's a fine line to that, because one's got to learn to be respectful in a relationship as well. So if you're travelling abroad for work and you've got your wife or your husband's at home and is looking after the two kids, then you would check in every so often, or if they text you, you would.
Yeah, but not all the time.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be all the time. It wouldn't need to be, because that partner would understand
Your
your
space.
space. Yeah.
best thing to do in a relationship, even if the person doesn't get paranoid. If you're gonna go out, you know, when you go out sometimes, your partner gets paranoid. about what you're gonna do if you're going out to the club. A lot of people say, oh, if you're going out to the club, you've got no reason. If you're going out, the only thing you're doing when you're going out is going out to meet girls. But that's what women initially think when their guys want to go out with a man them or something like that. Instantly they think you're going to draw girls. It's not necessarily, because if that woman is secure enough to think that that's not the case, and then you just reassure her, like, I'm gonna miss you or something, or can't wait to come home, something that reassures her that she's on your mind. Do you know where I'm coming from? Yeah. That is all it takes sometimes. Otherwise they just go out of their mind thinking. Do you know what? Doesn't mean you have to be on the phone, because you get some girls that constantly will ring up their boyfriend when they're out with the guys, and then their friends will mock them and laugh at them, etc. But then I feel that's their fault as a partner, because they've not made their partner feel secure enough to know that everything's good. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Equally, I mean, today I do feel girls do try and control the boys a bit too much. I think the trouble is they want their girl time.
What did you say?
They want their girl time. I see it with my own son. They want their girl time, all right, and they also want to be a part of what the boys are doing. Sometimes we've got to allow the boys to do their own thing, have their space. It's so important. That's healthier. You know, and the girls, you know, it's nice to have your girl time.
She's smiling at hey, where's going, boy?
You can't have your cake and eat it and have strawberries and cream on top and then still expect it to be a healthy relationship.
I think you've said it quite nicely, like that if you want to have your own time, your own space, then you should be able to do it. And Perry, you've summed it up to an extent that, for me personally, from my experiences, I would go out, if I was going out with my friends, wherever I would go, it would be constant. And if I didn't respond, my ex-partner would then ring my friends. Yeah. And if they didn't answer, she would then ring them on Messenger. And if they didn't answer then, she'd ring them on Instagram. If she didn't answer then, she'd ring them on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then...
They're emailing you.
Oh, mate, no. When they answered, for example, she'd demand that they'd send a picture of me with them to show that I was with them. I didn't know this. My friends wouldn't tell me, because it was just like, you're Mrs. Crackers. But they didn't want to tell me that. So it wasn't until the relationship broke down and we separated that they'd show me the messages, show me the pictures they had to send, show me the correspondence. So it didn't matter if I would touch base and say, yeah, I'm alright, I'm in Chelmsford, life's good. I'd send that, and then 10 minutes would pass, and then I hadn't replied to her again. Then the phone call would start. And the issue with that becomes then that your friends don't want to go out with you because they don't want every 30 seconds them getting phone calls. They're just like, I can't bother with that. I can't be asked to deal with someone ringing me every 2 seconds.
Can I play devil's advocate for like 1 second? Sorry to interrupt you.
Go on. I'll get Fatima's javelin if you do.
I love that.
No, it's the low flying missile.
No, right, so everything we spoke about earlier, right? About your girlfriend attacking you, and then Zion, wherever he's gone, saying to you, Zion saying to you, that's not healthy, you need to call it a day, kind of thing, yeah? Do you think your friend should have acted differently when your girlfriend was ringing them, and then they wouldn't tell you that she was messaging, and they were taking pictures of you on a night out just to prove to her that you was out with them? Do you think they should have been like, look, this is what's happening? You know what I mean? Now you're out of it, you can see into it, because you know when you're in a situation, you're blinded by love, so you don't see things like that. So if they would have told you, you'd have been like, oh no, don't worry. Well, now you're out of it, can you look back and think something?
A lot of it for me was just my strength of character, and in the end, because it wasn't a one-off, it was frequent, and it was so frequent that it became normalised and it was expected. So people were like, that's just normal, that's just her behaviour, that's normal. And for me, I was my own biggest enemy at the same time, because I would say, it's fine, I'll deal with it, don't worry about it, I'll deal with it, it's alright. And a lot of my friends, they were just like, that's normal for her, so we'll just accept we'll just accept the 1,000 phone calls or whatever, we'll accept the harassment because that's just what she does. And he's alright with it, he's fine with it, so it's fine. And I think that for me personally, I'm 35 now, I'm getting old. Don't have the grey hairs. Yeah, mate, don't honestly see this. But for me, a lot of it was all based around
you're violent.
Black does crack in the end. A lot of it for me was because of my personality and my character, people just didn't assume that it was an issue, didn't assume that you were getting burned at home and held at knife point and attacked physically, you're getting spat at, headbutted, punched, kicked, you're having your eyes gouged, like literally being strangled a lot, because you just don't, because people don't see that. People don't see you changing. When people do see it, like I had an employer who picked up on it and was like, Jason, what's going on? And I was just like, it's fine, I'll deal with it. But then you have to then start to think, what are my exit routes? How can I safeguard myself? And what's responsible for you and how you deal with things. And the reality is that, and you summed it up, you called sweets, was that you deal with it, but we've all got a threshold, we've all got a line, our own personal line. But the issue is, and you touched on it earlier, was that you don't trust the system, you have no faith in the system, you don't want to, as a male, you don't want to discuss these things because it's sort of like, I can deal with this, I can deal with someone holding me at knife point because he's a lot smaller than me.
I feel like there's a sense of embarrassment as well that comes with it, like as a man, because I feel like there's a lot more pressure on men to be like more vulnerable and emotional. So I feel like for a man to speak up about that, like domestic abuse within his relationship, I feel like he would be more hesitant to speak up about it, maybe because his friends, or it may be deemed as, you know, like you're a man, how are you even in this situation in the first place, type of thing. So do you feel like as a man, there's a sense of embarrassment that comes with it, like to speak out about it?
There's also an extended bit to that as well. It's sometimes people's circumstances in which they're in, if they've got a family, if they've got children, and that also makes it more difficult to walk away from.
I think you've summed it up, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's embarrassment, but I would say, I know Fatima touched on it earlier, that we don't set ourselves up to fail. I think from a male point of view, we don't necessarily do failure. Yeah. So when it's that interpretation of failure, and if you've gone through life where you've overcome adversity constantly, and you've always strived and achieved and thrived, it's difficult to accept that a marriage is going to break down or a relationship is going to end, because you take pride in not perfection, but you take pride in being successful at your life choices and things you aspire to achieve. I think in terms of, for me, it was one of them where support networks, there weren't that many support networks. The pandemic was a nightmare, let's be honest. And equally, it's trust in the system. We know from stats and data that men don't necessarily get that support. Men aren't heard. Men of colour, for example, aren't necessarily listen to effectively. And I think that it's education as well. I mean, for us, for men, I think it's education, and it's educating on how to deal with those situations. Because reality, much like Fatima touched on, the reality is that if your circumstances make it challenging, you can't just walk away from from your children, from a mortgage, from
responsibility.
Yeah, because the reality is you walk away from that and then you're labelled as, he's a dad, but he's walked away and he's just sacked the kids off, or he's left me with all the bills. Yeah. Then you go from being, you just left me with all the bills, you're a really bad person. You're like, well, no, I'm not. This is what's been going on. But you then don't say that because you then...
It's struggling with your conscience.
Because you can't say that because you're the man that needs to be all big and strong.
But then it's just seen as point scoring. It's then just seen as, you may left because I left because she was beating me every single day. I don't believe that. You just left because, because you can't deal with the kids. You're like, that's not the case. And I think for me, my biggest thing, and it'll all come out in the wash over the next sort of 6 months through the BBC. Don't tell no one. But my biggest issue was the fact that it's being heard and being believed, and the fact that the thing for me personally, I shouldn't disclose too much, is that you don't want to speak about it, but you're told to document everything which is going on in your life. Because if you're not going to safeguard yourself, you never know when you're going to need to have everything documented in a dossier of everything, because you never know when something's going to go wrong. Yeah. My biggest fear throughout all of it was being masculine and saying, "I'll deal with it. It's fine. I can deal with this. It's fine. I can keep her at arm's length. You're not going to stab me at any point because you can't." Which obviously is naive, that you're in love, so you think that, and you're hanging on to a relationship, you're hanging on to your family. And I think the thing for me was that I had a dossier of everything which had gone on, never wanted to use it, but I never wanted it to get out, but it was there, it was safeguarding me. But when there was that potential threat that was going to happen, my biggest worry was that I was going to come home one day, because there was days, for example, where my ex's family would see me out. I'm obviously a runner, so my ex's family would see me out near a woman, and they'd ring her and say, "Jackie's out with other women." So my ex tracked me everything, so she knew when I'd be out for, how long I'd be out for. If I was 3 minutes late, for example, she'd accuse me of having it off with somebody else, and she'd be waiting for me in the street. In the middle of the street, she'd hammer me in the middle of it, like shouting, screaming a lot. It's embarrassing. But my biggest fear was that one day I was going to come in from work or home from a run, and she would lunge at me at the stairs, or on the stairs, for example, and go past me and go down the stairs and break her neck or whatever. And then I would be then held account for that. But then you've got all this dossier of evidence, information, and everything. And then when it was raised, it was just seen as an alibi. And you're like, no, this really happened, and it happened for 8 years. But
there's a level of damage that causes emotionally and mentally as well, not just the physical damage. Then you've got to rebuild yourself.
That's it. And for me, like, so I'm with someone new now, and she's amazing, but it's one of them where I'm so emotionally dead because I've lost so many parts of my memory stick and my internal storage, which I'll never get back. So I don't open up. I won't speak to anyone, and I'll just suffer in silence over the tiniest things, because you lose yourself a little bit. Don't get into that stage. Don't get to that stage, because it's hard to get out of. But you guys have got good people around you, so that's all that counts.
Good relationships on the end of that, though. Having a good relationship is the most wonderful thing. Okay, so you'll find somebody as well eventually.
And on that note, we've got 30 seconds. So
you all give yourselves a clap. Thank you so much.
Well done.
Well done, everybody. Thank you. Not